So most of y'all know, and I've talked about this before, that I'm a bit of a creature of habit, especially when it comes to my workout. Because when I get into the gym, I really like to listen to podcasts. When I get into the gym, I really like to listen to music or watch streaming videos. I don't like to think about what I'm doing because that requires too much thought, and I'd rather devote that thought to other things. So what happens is when I get a workout routine, I stick to that routine. That's just how I operate. And I know you're not supposed to do that because I married a personal trainer, and she tells me all the time that you're supposed to vary your workout to trick your body, but oh well. And this is not just true with weights, it's true with cardio, and it was true for me in college. So when I was in college, I discovered that I kind of, in a very sick, weird way, enjoyed running. So what I would do is I would go out and I would walk out of our apartment, and the apartment we lived in was right on the perimeter of Clemson. And we called this like 4.5 mile stretch around Clemson perimeter because it was, you know, the perimeter of the college. So I'd walk out and then I would just go run 4.5 miles. And I would do that at least 6 days a week. And that was it. I would just go out, run 4.5 miles, come back in. Well, I wouldn't even shower. I'd jump in the pool. And then I'd go to class. And I just got in that routine and got in that routine and got in that routine. Did that for, you know, probably over a year. And people would see me running perimeter all the time because they'd be driving to from class, walking to and from class. And somebody planted a seed in my head. Said, Jason, you obviously enjoy running. Have you ever thought about running a marathon? And at that point, I was doing 4.5 miles every day. I was in my routine. I was just comfortable there. I was okay with doing it. I was pushing myself a little bit, but I wasn't going crazy. And somebody plants a seed and says, why don't you go and run 26.2 miles? Oh, yeah. Now me, the greatest athletic achievement I had in my life up to that point was being a part of the bowling team in high school. And not only being a part of the bowling team, I rode the bitch on the bowling team in high school. I was the guy who got to bowl the last game when we had no chance of winning. It was sad, but there was a proud moment when I was at bowling state championships and the announcer said before the national anthem, they said, would all the athletes please rise? And I was like, yes, I'm an athlete in this moment. So I finally, though, I had a vision. I was like, I'm not coordinated, but I am coordinated and dumb enough to put one foot in front of the other as fast as I can for 26.2 miles. So all of a sudden, what was routine, what was ritualistic, where I wasn't pushing myself, I got a vision for something so much greater than what I was doing, and I started running further and further and further. So the plan was to run the Memphis Marathon in December of my junior year. So I started my junior year by training for a marathon. And it's really interesting how you train for a marathon. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to do 5 days out of the week, just normal cardio, and kind of cross-train, do the elliptical swim, things like that, ride a bike, do a little bit of running. But then on that 6th day, whatever your long run day is, you run a long run. And you start out with like a 4, 5, or 6 mile run, and you slowly, over the course of about 3.5 months, build up. So then you go for a 10-mile run, then you do a 12-mile run, you do a 15-mile run, and it gets progressively longer and longer and longer until you get to 22 miles. That's the longest you're supposed to do, and then you're supposed to back down about a month before you run the marathon. But there's 2 things that you have to make sure you do in addition to that. First of all, you have to make sure you take a day off a week. You have, like everything you read, so take a day off, even take 2 days off. Because just as important as running hard, pursuing this vision of running a marathon, doing something you've never done before, it's just as important to rest, because what might have, and this will sound weird because you're like, running a marathon is a joy, but what might have started out as like a joy, something that's exciting, all of a sudden becomes a burden because you're not giving your body enough time to rest. In fact, the day before, 2 days before I ran my marathon, the training manual said, don't do anything. Don't run, don't go to the gym, just sit at home, eat, well, you probably weren't supposed to eat junk, eat a lot of carbs, and, you know, just watch TV. Like, don't do it. Why? Because it's just as important to rest as it is to work when you're pursuing a vision. And if you don't rest and you just work, what is a joy turns into a burden. Because some of you are like, okay, great, you're talking about your marathon. Well, yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to have marathon sign-ups. Who wants to run the Memphis Marathon in December? Anybody interested?
I will.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Okay, we got one person who wants to run.
I'm already trained up, too.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
So, no, the reason we're talking about marathons is because for our church, I believe we've entered into this kind of new phase that I'm really excited about. Because I think we're beginning to see clearer and clearer what God has for us vision-wise, is what we should be pursuing, what we should be moving towards. And for some of us, we kind of, this church has existed for almost 6 years now. Many of you have been a part of this for that long. And it's so easy, we're excited about the church, we love our church, but it's kind of like me with running. I kind of got in that routine, 4.5 miles, never really challenging, never really pushing myself forward, all of that stuff. But then all of a sudden, if we've got a vision for something that's so much bigger than what we see now, while simultaneously taking the message of the gospel that's so impacted us, it can cause us to kind of break out of that routine, break out of that shell. In the same way I started running, instead of doing 4.5 on the long run day, I did 6 on the long run day. I did 8 on the long run day. I eventually did 22 miles, which was really funny because I still wasn't creative with the run, so I just lapped perimeter 5 times. And people were going to class and then leaving class 3 hours later and still saw me running. And they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was shirtless too, to top it all off. And they were just like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." Yeah, that was just like Forrest Gump. I had a whole crew of people just following behind me. But in the same way that can push me, like the idea, the vision of running a marathon, if we see this vision that God's beginning to lay out for us as a church, it can push us to go further, push us to do more than we have been doing, but simultaneously, just like training for a marathon, we can't forget to rest. We can't forget to Sabbath. We can't forget to find our joy in Christ.